Namaste. My name is Dr. Anup Mulakuluri, and thank you for your interest in individualizing and personalizing your self care through Ayurveda. This video is meant to guide you to take the Ayurvedic constitutional quiz to understand your constitution and in turn use that information to cultivate diet, lifestyle, routine, and personal self care to optimize your health and optimize your wellness. Now, Ayurvedic constitutional analysis is used to understand the physiological and psychological makeup of the individual. We use the language of nature because Ayurveda sees humans as a microcosm of nature. The five natural elements of space, air, fire, water, and earth make up our body and our physiology. To simplify this, Ayurveda breaks down the understanding of physiology and psychology into three basic phenomena. The first of this is the Vata dosha. Vata has to do with the space and air element. The main functions associated with Vata are movement and coordination. The next is Pitta dosha, has to do with fire and water element, and the main functions associated here are the processing and metabolic function. Lastly, there is the Kapha dosha, which is the water and earth element, and the function here has to do with the structure and nourishment. So, let's get a little bit more understanding of what this means. For example, Vata, movement can mean movement of our breath, movement of our musculoskeletal system, movement of our nerve impulses, involuntary movement of food through our GI tract, movement of our heart, and more. But it can also mean movement of our thoughts, thoughts running fast, thoughts running slow, movement of our emotions, and our motivations is also included with the Vata dosha. Coordination has to do with coordination of our day-night cycle, our digestive and metabolic cycle, and the coordination of the various hormonal cycles in the body that is coordinated through the hormones. Then we get into the Pitta dosha. The Pitta dosha has to do with first the metabolic activity, that can be the digestive activity of food that is then processed and translated into energy, or the tissues and cells of our body. The metabolic activity can also involve processing and elimination of toxins and waste product out of our body. But the processing can also involve your thinking process, your analytical process. When you see something or when you experience something, how do you analyze it? How do you convert an experience into information that you can then use to respond to your life? That is also Pitta. Lastly, there is the Kapha dosha. Kapha dosha has to do with structure, which can be the musculoskeletal system, which has to do with how we are made up. It can also mean the cellular structure of our tissues like the liver cells, heart cells, kidney cells, and other organ cells that give the unique function to that tissue. The second aspect of kapha is the nourishment. Nourishment has to do with the fluids that surround the tissue. There is the cellular fluid, but there is also plasma which carries nourishment through the blood to all the organ systems. There is the cerebral spinal fluid that is specifically carrying nourishment to the nervous system and taking out waste products from there. And so this is the aspect of kapha dosha. All the three come together to support the function of life in the brain and the body. And in turn, they make up our constitution. This constitution, our individuality, is based on the composition of these three phenomena at the time of conception. And so, from the single cell of the embryo, this pattern is replicated and evolved into the whole individual. That is you. The job of Ayurveda is to understand your individuality in the sense of the composition of these patterns. This composition indicates to your natural physiological makeup as well as psychological tendencies. Ayurveda also uses this to understand how you might be imbalanced from your constitution or deviated from your constitution, which can lead to disease. Ayurveda also uses this information to guide us to use diet, lifestyle, routine, and daily practices that can guide us back towards health and optimal well being. There can be 7 basic constitutions, and when we take the Ayurvedic quiz, it helps us to understand our constitutional score. Here are some examples of that constitutional score. You can be single dosha dominant, you can be dual dosha dominant, or you can be tridoshic. After you take your quiz, you will find out your constitution, and we will be able to use this information to give you appropriate guidance for your well being. Namaste.